Most people aren't living their own lives. They're living as ghosts in a machine someone else built. This is the story of a man who decided to become the architect. What if the world's most successful investor didn't trust his own thinking? What if the key to becoming extraordinary wasn't being right, but discovering which version of you was making the decisions? Ray Dalio wasn't always a legend. In 1982, he wasn't fighting markets. He was fighting himself. Two forces battled for control of his mind: the ghost, that collection of inherited fears, borrowed beliefs, and automatic reactions, and the architect, the conscious self that dared to question everything. He made a bold prediction that year. The markets would crash. He bet everything on it, not just money, his reputation, his identity, his certainty that he understood how the world worked. But the crash never came. The market soared. He lost clients. He lost his reputation. He lost all his money. And then, in the most humiliating moment of his life, he borrowed $4,000 from his father just to keep the lights on. For most people, that would have been the end. But for Dalio, it was the beginning. That moment didn't break him. It debugged him. He realized something profound. His thinking, his judgment, his confidence, his so-called knowledge was contaminated by a ghost made of ego, assumptions, and invisible code he never chose to install. So he did what no one else had done. He started building an operating system for his own brain, not to eliminate the ghost, but to finally see it, understand it, and take back control. Welcome to Billionaire OS, where we don't just study the greatest minds, we install them. And today we're going deep into the mental architecture that turned a man who lost everything into someone who would manage over $150 billion. Insight 1. Pain plus reflection equals power. He thought he was brilliant. For a while, maybe he was. Young, confident, armed with charts and theories, Ray Dalio believed he could predict the future. In 1982, he called for a market crash. Boldly, publicly, he shorted the market, doubled down, tripled down. Clients listened. He was sure. But the crash didn't come. Instead, the market exploded upward and Ray's empire collapsed. He didn't just lose money, he lost everything. He had to lay off his entire team. His confidence shattered, his pride disintegrated. And then came that moment, asking his own father for a loan, $4,000, just to survive. But here's what most people miss. That pain, that shame, that wasn't the end. It was data. Because Ray did something most people never do. He reflected, deeply, painfully, honestly. He didn't numb the pain. He interrogated it. He asked, where did I go wrong? What pattern led me here? What assumptions blinded me? What ghost was I listening to? And then he wrote it down. That moment became the birth of a lifelong philosophy. Pain plus reflection equals progress. Simple, elegant, brutal. Every mistake is a mirror. Every failure, a lesson, but only if you dare to face it. Most people don't. They deny, they distract, they defend their ego. They let the ghost keep running the show. They never grow. Dalio's magic wasn't that he avoided failure. It's that he harvested it. He turned pain into patterns, patterns into principles, principles into power. And that power became the foundation of Bridgewater, a company that would go on to manage over $150 billion. But here's the part nobody talks about. Pain without reflection is just suffering. It's the ghost winning. Again. The ghost loves when you hurt, but don't learn. It feeds on unexplored trauma, unexamined mistakes, unprocessed emotions. Every time you rush past pain without stopping to decode it, you give the ghost more power. Think about your own life. What's the biggest failure you're still ashamed of? A relationship that imploded? A business that crashed? A dream that died? Now, ask yourself the architect's question. Did I truly reflect on it? Or did I just let the ghost tell me a story about it? A story where I'm the victim, or the hero, or the fool, but never the student. Because unprocessed pain becomes invisible bugs in your system, and those bugs make you repeat the same patterns again and again. Until you debug it, you're not free. You're just the ghost puppet, dancing to code you didn't write. Dalio's breakthrough was this. Pain isn't the problem. Unused pain is. Pain is feedback from reality, but reflection is what turns feedback into an upgrade. So, what if from now on, every time something hurts, you paused? Not to escape it, but to study it. Write it down, name the pattern, extract the lesson, update your code. Because this isn't just a lesson about failure, It's a formula for becoming unstoppable. It's how the architect starts to override the ghost. But facing the pain is only the first step. Next, you have to face something even scarier. The truth. Insight 2. Radical reality and the cost of clarity. Ray Dalio didn't just rebuild his career after failure. He rebuilt it on something most people avoid at all costs. The raw, unfiltered truth. Not the sugar-coated kind, not the polite kind, the kind that punches your ego in the face and leaves the ghost nowhere to hide. He called it radical truth and radical transparency. Not just a philosophy, a system. At Bridgewater, truth isn't a virtue, it's a requirement. Because anything less is a bug in the code. Most people lie, not always to others, but constantly to themselves. It'll work out. It's not that bad. I already know this. But those lies, however small, become mental viruses. They distort perception. They corrupt decisions. They multiply until your entire operating system is based on false inputs. And when your input is false, your output is chaos. The ghost thrives in this fog of self-deception. But let's be honest, there's a cost to this clarity. The price is comfort. The price is the quiet illusion that everything is fine. When you install radical truth, you might lose friends who prefer polite lies. You might feel lonely because the world runs on sugar-coated feedback. Dalio didn't just build a system for success. He built a tolerance for the painful solitude that comes with seeing what others refuse to see. At Bridgewater, this meant recording every meeting, every word, every decision. Feedback was constant, brutal, immediate. Nobody was safe from critique, not even Dalio himself. An intern could tell the founder he was wrong, and if that intern had the data to back it up, Dalio would listen. Because truth has no rank, only relevance. People hated it at first. Some quit, some cried. The ghost in them screamed, "This is too much! Protect yourself! Hide!" But the ones who stayed, they evolved. They became sharper, clearer, emotionally bulletproof. They stopped taking feedback personally and started using it as fuel. They stopped hiding mistakes and started analyzing them like engineers debugging a system. The architect in them grew stronger than the ghost. And here's the part most people miss. Radical reality isn't cold, it's kind. Because pretending something is okay when it's broken is cruel. To yourself, to others, to reality itself. Honesty, even when it stings, is a gift. It says, I respect you enough to tell you the truth and help you grow. I respect myself enough to hear it. Now pause. Ask yourself this. Where in your life are you filtering the truth? Where are you protecting yourself from discomfort at the cost of clarity? Is it your career, your relationship, your health, your potential? What lies is the ghost telling you to keep you comfortable? What if, just for a week, you practiced radical reality? What if you wrote down the truth, the brutal, unvarnished truth, about the one thing you've been avoiding? Because here's what Dalio discovered. The clearer your perception, the more precise your code. And the more precise your code, the better your results. It's not magic, it's math. The architect needs clean data. The ghost needs comfortable lies. Which one are you feeding? Insight 3. The civil war inside your mind. There are two of you. You probably think there's only one. The voice in your head. The one that's listening right now. But according to Ray Dalio and a growing wave of cognitive science, you're actually two minds pretending to be one, and they're at war. Meet the guardian, your automated mind, your subconscious. Its job isn't to make you happy, it's to keep you safe. It guards your ego, maintains old habits, and fights every change because change equals danger. It's the king of the comfort zone. It's the ghost's favorite general. Then there's the seeker, your conscious mind, the part that craves growth, truth, and transformation. It whispers, what if, while the guardian screams, stay back. It dreams of who you could become, while the guardian obsesses over who you've always been. Every decision you make is a battlefield. The guardian deploys fear, doubt, instant gratification. The seeker counters with vision, logic, long-term thinking. Most people don't even know this war is happening. They think they're making choices, but really, they're just watching the guardian win by default. Dalio's insight was this. You can't rely on awareness alone. The guardian is too strong, too fast, too practiced. You have to build systems that arm the seeker with better weapons than the guardian's raw, primal fear. That's why he created decision logs. He wrote down not just what decision he made, but why. Which voice was speaking? What evidence supported it? What actually happened? Over time, patterns emerged. The Guardian's lies became visible, its favorite tricks exposed. Bad investment? The Guardian's greed, relationship conflict, the Guardian's pride, missed opportunity, the Guardian's fear. Once you see the patterns, you can intercept them. You can build protocols that give the seeker time to respond before the Guardian reacts. Imagine if you did the same. Think of a time you made a decision you regretted. You knew better, but you did it anyway. Was it the Guardian protecting your ego, avoiding discomfort, choosing the familiar over the optimal? That wasn't you being weak. That was you losing a battle you didn't know you were fighting. Dalio didn't win this war in a day. He won it one decision at a time, by systematically shifting power from the Guardian to the seeker, by externalizing his thinking, building dashboards, creating rules. That way, when the moment came, he wasn't relying on willpower. He was relying on architecture. Because here's the truth. If you don't know which voice is making the call, the Guardian wins by default. The ghost stays in control, and you keep wondering why you can't break free from patterns that no longer serve you. But identifying the combatants is only the beginning. Next, we need to give the seeker a battle plan that actually works. Insight 4. The 5-step code to architect your reality. Every outcome in life is traceable. Every success, every failure, every stuck loop you can't escape. Ray Dalio knew this not because he was a genius, but because he was methodical. After watching the Guardian sabotage decision after decision, he built a system the seeker could follow. 5 steps, always 5, simple in structure, ruthless in execution. This is how the architect takes control from the ghost. Step 1. Set clear goals, not vague dreams, not be successful. Real, measurable, undeniable goals. Goals so specific they scare the Guardian. Goals so honest they expose every lie the ghost has been telling. Most people don't fail because they aim too high. They fail because they don't know what they're aiming at. The ghost loves fuzzy targets. The architect demands precision. Step 2. Identify and don't tolerate problems. Most people ignore problems because the Guardian whispers, "It's fine, it'll go away, don't make waves." But problems are signals, bugs in the system, golden diagnostic data. Dalio treated every problem like a gift wrapped in sandpaper, rough to handle, but precious inside. The architect sees problems as upgrade opportunities. The ghost sees them as threats. Step 3. Diagnose accurately. This is where most crash, because diagnosing means letting go of ego. Asking, what's the root cause? Not the symptom, not the surface drama, but the hidden pattern driving repeated failure. Maybe it's a skill gap. Maybe it's a mindset flaw. Maybe it's the Guardian running outdated code. And if you're not willing to look inward, your system will rot quietly beneath the surface. Step 4. Design a plan. Once you know the cause, you architect a solution. This isn't guesswork. This is engineering. A plan is code, step by step. Executable, tracked, measured. The Guardian hates plans because plans create accountability. The seeker loves them because they turn dreams into systematic reality. Step 5. Push through to completion, the final battlefield, where the Guardian makes its last stand. It will deploy every weapon, procrastination, perfectionism, distraction, doubt. Most people surrender here. They make the plan, they say the words, but when resistance hits, they stop. Dalio didn't push blindly. He pushed systematically. He tracked momentum, measured output, adjusted, recalibrated, but he never let the Guardian win through inaction. Now, look at those 5 steps like code. Function, execute, goal, goal. Let problem equal detect, problem, goal. Let root cause equal diagnose, problem. Let plan equal design, root cause, return, push, plan. That's Dalio's mind. That's the mental architecture of Bridgewater. That's how an architect defeats a ghost. But here's the twist. This doesn't just apply to business. It applies to everything. Fitness, relationships, creativity, meaning. If you're stuck, it's because one of these 5 steps is compromised by ghost code. Maybe your goal is what others expect, not what you want. Maybe you're tolerating problems the Guardian says are normal. Maybe you're misdiagnosing to protect your ego. Maybe your plan is fiction. Or maybe you gave up because the Guardian convinced you that struggle means stop. So, what would happen if you ran every goal through this process? What would shift if you debugged your dreams like a software engineer? What if the Seeker finally had a reliable weapon against the Guardian's chaos? Because once you embed this system, failure becomes data, progress becomes predictable. The architect grows stronger with each cycle. But the system is only as strong as the operator. And there's one more enemy lurking in the code, the most dangerous malware of all. Insight 5. The invisible malware called ego. You can have the clearest goals, the smartest plan, the most optimized strategy, and still fail. Not because of the system, but because of the saboteur within it. Ray Dalio discovered this the hard way. After years of refining his 5-step code, he kept noticing one pattern: brilliant people making catastrophic decisions, including himself. Why? 2 words that the Guardian uses as its ultimate weapons: ego and blind spots. Let's start with ego. It's not just pride, it's the ghost's primary defense mechanism. The voice that says, "I already know." The urge to defend, justify, argue, protect. It's the malware that makes you prioritize being right over seeing clearly. Sometimes it's loud and obvious. Sometimes it's subtle, like a tightening in your chest when someone disagrees. A delay in asking for feedback. A silent refusal to admit I was wrong. Ego doesn't care about growth. It only cares about protecting the ghost's version of who you are. And the moment you prioritize identity over reality, your system corrupts. The architect needs truth. The ego needs comfort. They cannot coexist. Now, blind spots. These are more dangerous because, by definition, you can't see them. They're not flaws you're ignoring. They're errors you're unaware of. Patterns you keep repeating. Behaviors you think help, but actually harm. The Guardian loves blind spots because they're invisible shields against change. Dalio realized that success wasn't about raw intelligence. It was about awareness. He said, "If you don't look at yourself objectively, you'll never understand your real strengths and weaknesses." So, he built systems not just for decision-making, but for self-debugging, systems that exposed what the ghost desperately wanted to hide. He used 360-degree feedback, tools where employees could rate each other anonymously, continuously, with brutal honesty. He embraced recorded meetings so he could watch his own thinking frame by frame, like a coach rewatches game footage. He even let algorithms rate his believability on certain topics, so decisions could be weighted based on track record, not opinion. Why go to such lengths? Because he discovered a terrifying truth. The human mind is not natively reliable. We are full of cognitive distortions, defensive reflexes, emotional overlays. The ghost has 1,000 ways to hide the truth. You don't eliminate that by willpower. You eliminate it by system design, by making the invisible visible. Pause. Think about this. Where has your ego cost you? What feedback did you dismiss because it hurt your pride? What opportunity did you miss because you already knew better? What pattern keeps repeating in your life, in money, love, creativity, and you don't even know why? This isn't about shame. It's about debugging. Your ego isn't evil. It's just outdated security software that treats all feedback as an attack. Your blind spots aren't character flaws. They're simply areas where the ghost operates undetected. But if you never build a system to catch them, you'll always be running corrupted code. Dalio's genius wasn't that he had fewer flaws. It's that he had fewer illusions about them. He designed his life so truth could override pride, so data could expose distortion. So the architect could see what the ghost was hiding. He turned self-awareness from a feeling into a system. And now you can do the same. Not by becoming less human, but by becoming more conscious of your human glitches. Because once you remove the invisible malware, your code runs clean. Your mind stops sabotaging itself, and your system starts scaling. But awareness isn't enough. Once you see the bugs, you need to redesign how you make decisions entirely. Insight 6. Engineer your mind. Don't trust your emotions. Most people make decisions the way they make soup. Throw in logic, add emotion, season with urgency, and hope it tastes right. But Ray Dalio didn't trust hope. He didn't trust gut. After seeing how the Guardian used emotions to hijack decisions, he stopped thinking like a human and started thinking like an engineer. Dalio built something extraordinary inside Bridgewater, a decision-making process that treated thinking like code. Every choice had inputs, logic paths, outputs. It wasn't about how he felt in the moment. It was about what the data showed, what the principles said, and what past results had proven. Emotions became signals to investigate, not commands to obey. At the center of this system, the believability-weighted algorithm. Here's how it works. Not all opinions are equal. Some people have more experience, better track records, more accurate thinking in specific domains. So, when decisions had to be made, everyone got input, but their votes were weighted by believability score. An intern who was right 90% of the time in a specific area beat out a senior exec who was right 60%. It wasn't about status, it was about stats. This is revolutionary because it strips power from the Guardian's favorite tool, emotional authority. The loudest voice doesn't win. The most senior doesn't decide. The most emotional doesn't dominate. Only accuracy matters. Only results count. The ghost hates this because it can't manipulate data the way it manipulates feelings. Now imagine applying this to your life. Imagine running decisions through a weighted filter, not based on who's loudest in your head, but on what's been most true. That urgent voice saying, buy now, check its track record. That fear saying, don't try, review its accuracy rate. That excitement promising easy success, audit its history. Dalio designed decision tools, scorecards, checklists, reflection logs. Every major call became traceable, testable, improvable. If it failed, he could debug it. If it worked, he could replicate it. It was never about one brilliant decision. It was about building a repeatable process that gets smarter over time. The architect's approach versus the ghost's chaos. And here's what's revolutionary. When you start making decisions this way, emotions lose their grip, not because you suppress them, but because you no longer depend on them. You start to trust the system more than the story in your head. The Guardian screams, but the seeker has better data, and data beats drama every time. So pause. Examine your last major decision. How did you make it? Based on urgency, mood, pressure, fear, excitement? Were you cooking soup or writing code? Because the difference between a chaotic life and a clear one isn't luck. It's the architecture behind your thinking. Dalio proved that systematic thinking outperforms emotional chaos every single time. But there's one more piece to this engineering mindset. It's not just about your own decisions, because if you want to scale this clarity beyond yourself, you need to make thinking visible, not just yours, everyone's. Insight. 7. The dot collector and the physics of feedback. What if every time you spoke, your thinking became visible? Not your words, your actual thinking, your logic, biases, emotions, blind spots, all mapped in real time. What if others could see your mental patterns as clearly as you see theirs? Sounds terrifying, right? For most people it is. But for Ray Dalio, it was the ultimate ghost killer. He called it the dot collector. In most companies, feedback is delayed, diluted, or dishonest. People hide their true thoughts to protect relationships, play politics, preserve their image. The Guardian runs this game perfectly. It keeps everyone comfortable, polite, and stuck. But Dalio wasn't building a normal company. He was building a thinking machine, and every machine needs real-time diagnostics. Here's how the dot collector worked. During meetings, every employee had a device. As others spoke, they could rate each participant in dozens of categories: logic, assertiveness, open-mindedness, listening skills, creativity, reliability. With just a tap, a colored dot appeared on the speaker's profile: red for weak, green for strong, blue for neutral. Over time, these dots formed patterns, data, a living psychological map of how each person actually thinks, not how they think they think. The ghost hates this kind of exposure. It screams, "They're judging you. Protect yourself. Hide." But something profound happens when you push through that fear. When the dots accumulate, patterns emerge. That executive who dominates every meeting, the dots show he's actually wrong 70% of the time. That quiet analyst everyone ignores, she's got a 95% accuracy rate on market calls. The intern who challenged the CEO, his logic scores are off the charts. This isn't about judgment, it's about reality. The dot collector doesn't measure who you wish you were, it measures who you actually are. And that gap between self-image and reality, that's where all the bugs hide. That's where the ghost operates. That's where the real work begins. Think about your own life. When was the last time you received honest, quantified feedback? When did someone tell you, not gently but clearly, that your thinking has a flaw, that your logic breaks down under pressure, that your creativity peaks at certain times? Most people never get this data. They operate on assumptions, hopes, and the ghost's lies about their capabilities. But here's the breakthrough. The faster the feedback, the faster the growth. The more honest the signal, the more accurate the upgrade. Dalio's culture wasn't kind in the traditional sense. It was clear. And in that clarity, people evolved at extraordinary speed. They stopped defending their self-image and started optimizing their actual performance. The architect in them finally had real data to work with. You don't need a high-tech system to apply this principle. You just need the courage to make feedback systematic, not accidental. Ask people to rate your ideas, not just nod along. Log your predictions and check them later. Track your emotional patterns and their outcomes. Turn your life into a real-time feedback laboratory. Because when you stop hiding from reality and start measuring it, something incredible happens. The ghost loses its power. It can't operate in the light of data. It can't maintain illusions under constant observation. And as it weakens, the architect grows stronger, clear, confident, capable of something even more revolutionary than personal growth. Insight 8. Not democracy, not dictatorship, but idea meritocracy. Most organizations are broken by design. In some, the loudest voice wins. In others, the highest title dictates truth. But Ray Dalio saw both models for what they really were: ghost systems. Systems where ego, status, and politics override reality. So he built something revolutionary, something that doesn't care about age, ego, or authority. He called it idea meritocracy, and it changed everything. Here's the core belief: the best idea should win, not the person who says it. Simple in theory, revolutionary in practice. Because to make that happen, Dalio had to engineer an environment where truth outranks rank, where logic outruns legacy, where the architect and everyone could speak without the ghost interfering. At Bridgewater, this meant radical structures. Everyone was expected to speak up. Interns challenged executives. Analysts critiqued founders. The Guardian in most people screams, "Stay in your lane, know your place, don't rock the boat." But Dalio built a culture where staying quiet was the sin, not speaking up. But this wasn't chaos. It was systematized. Opinions weren't all treated equally. They were weighted based on believability. A score built from past accuracy, domain expertise, and proven insight. If someone consistently made smart calls about currency markets, their voice and currency decisions carried more weight. If someone had no track record, their input still mattered, but less. This wasn't politics. It was physics. The weight of an idea depended on its proven mass, not its source. Now imagine that in your life. What if every major decision went through a process where the best logic, not the strongest emotion, won? What if you stopped defaulting to what feels right and started asking what's most likely true based on evidence? What if the ghost's voice had to compete on merit, not volume? This requires a profound shift. You have to decouple decision-making from ego. You have to want the right answer more than you want to be right. Most people say they want this. But when someone younger, less experienced, or lower status challenges their thinking, the ghost activates. It defends, it dismisses, it pulls rank. And in that moment, the opportunity for truth dies. Dalio didn't just tolerate being challenged. He designed for it. He built systems where disagreement was rewarded, where people were trained to think independently but test their thinking against the best minds available, not to win, but to evolve, not to dominate, but to discover. Think about your own ecosystem, in your work, your relationships, your inner circle. Who gets to challenge you? When they do, does the architect in you listen, or does the ghost defend? Have you built a life where the best idea wins, or where the loudest ego dominates? Because here's what Dalio proved. When you create idea meritocracy, you don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You just need to build a room where the smartest idea can emerge, where the ghost's politics can't override the architect's clarity, where truth has a fighting chance against tradition. But even the best ideas hit a wall, the wall between what we want and what is. And that collision is where most dreams die, unless you learn to reconcile. Insight, enistors. 9. The reconciliation, principle and the physics of reality. Everyone has dreams, desires, goals, but most people live in a quiet war between what they want and what is. They wish for success but avoid the grind. They want love but fear vulnerability. They hope for transformation but resist change. This resistance creates friction. Mental, emotional, existential. The ghost feeds on this friction. It loves the gap between fantasy and reality, because that's where excuses live. Ray Dalio saw this pattern everywhere. Brilliant people with beautiful dreams who refuse to look at brutal facts. So, he created a principle that sounds simple but requires tremendous courage. You must reconcile your goals with reality, not someday, now, not partially, completely. This isn't about giving up on dreams. It's about grounding them in physics. Because here's what Dalio understood. Reality isn't negotiable. It operates by laws as fixed as gravity. You can't wish your way around them. You can't positive think through them. You can only work with them or be crushed by them. Living by default isn't just a psychological choice. It's submitting to entropy, the universal law that all systems left unattended will decay into chaos. Your mind, your relationships, your career, they're all systems. If you don't actively inject energy and order into them through principles, through reflection, through conscious design, they will naturally break down. The ghost is entropy in human form. It pulls everything toward disorder, comfort, decay. Dalio's entire philosophy isn't just about success. It's a lifelong battle against mental entropy. Every principle he wrote was a line of code to bring order to chaos. Every reflection session was an injection of energy to reverse decay. He wasn't just building a hedge fund. He was bending the laws of physics in his favor. At Bridgewater, reconciliation happened through a process. First, state what you want with absolute clarity. Second, map current reality with brutal honesty. Third, measure the gap without judgment. Fourth, build a bridge with practical steps, not hope, not motivation. Engineering. Let's say your goal is to build $1 billion business. The ghost says, yes, you deserve it. Dream big. But the architect asks, what's real? Maybe your product needs work. Maybe you're avoiding sales calls. Maybe you've been planning for 6 months but haven't executed. These aren't insults. They're inputs. They're the raw materials for reconciliation. When you ignore these inputs, you're not being optimistic. You're being delusional. And delusion is the ghost's favorite drug. It keeps you high on possibility while reality slowly crushes your dreams. But when you reconcile, really reconcile, something powerful happens. Confusion disappears. Because confusion isn't lack of knowledge, it's the clash between what you want to believe and what actually is. Look at your own life. What goal have you been chasing without progress? What uncomfortable truth are you avoiding? Maybe it's not talent. Maybe it's not timing. Maybe it's simpler. Maybe you're trying to download a dream while running on dial-up reality. Maybe the ghost convinced you that wanting something is the same as building toward it. Reconciliation isn't surrender. It's alignment. It's saying, I want this, and I'm willing to face every brutal fact between me and it. It's the moment the architect stops fighting reality and starts using it. Because when desire and truth finally sync, your code runs clean, your actions match your ambitions, and progress becomes not just possible, but inevitable. But aligning with reality is just the beginning. Because even when you see clearly, you still face a choice. The choice between what feels good now and what matters later. Insight. 10. Second order. Thinking in the price of transformation. Most people chase what feels good now. Pleasure, approval, comfort. They choose the easy path in the moment and pay for it forever. The ghost loves this game. It trades your future for a hit of dopamine. It mortgages your potential for immediate relief. But Ray Dalio played a different game, the long game, the second order game. He understood that every decision creates ripples. First order consequences hit fast and feel strong. The pleasure of saying yes, the relief of avoiding conflict, the comfort of staying safe. But second-order consequences, those are the real architects of destiny. They arrive slowly, silently, inevitably, and by the time they hit, it's too late to negotiate. Dalio's rule was profound. Don't confuse what feels good with what is good. Because often, they are opposites. Rest feels good, but overdone, it becomes stagnation. Conflict feels bad, but faced early, it prevents disaster. Saying yes wins applause, but saying no protects your purpose. The ghost only sees first order. The architect must see second. This is why most people never break through. They're stuck in what Dalio called the loop of short-term reward. They optimize for comfort, praise, ease. But every time you escape discomfort, you also escape growth. You trade the pain of discipline for the pain of regret, and regret compounds with interest. Dalio flipped the script. He designed for discomfort, trained himself and his team to see pain as the price of future clarity. He told his people, if you're not failing, you're not pushing your limits. And if you're not pushing your limits, you're not maximizing your potential. The ghost hates this philosophy. It wants safety, not growth, comfort, not clarity, survival, not significance. Think about second order, thinking like compound interest for decisions. A hard conversation today prevents a relationship breakdown tomorrow. A rejected temptation today protects your integrity forever. A difficult workout today buys decades of vitality. The ghost can't see these trades. It's too focused on now. But the architect understands. Suffer intelligently today. Thrive inevitably tomorrow. Pause right now. What decision have you been avoiding because it feels bad now, even though you know it's right for later? What comfort is the ghost selling you that the architect knows is poison? That hesitation isn't weakness. It's the ghost's propaganda, and if you don't override it, your life becomes a loop, avoiding what develops you, choosing what distracts you, repeating what diminishes you. Second-order thinking is the escape velocity from that loop. It's the mental discipline that trades noise for signal, reaction for reflection, the ghost's chaos for the architect's clarity. But Dalio didn't just think long-term. He tracked it. Because what you don't measure, you can't master. Insight. 11. Your life is data and the art of self-surveillance. Ray Dalio didn't trust memory. He trusted data. He saw life not as a series of experiences to be felt, but as experiments to be measured, events to be logged, decisions to be analyzed, patterns to be decoded. Why? Because the ghost thrives in the fog of forgetfulness. But the architect needs clarity, and clarity requires evidence. At Bridgewater, everything was tracked. Not just trades and profits, but thoughts, meetings, reactions, predictions, emotions. Every conversation had a record. Every insight had a timestamp. This wasn't surveillance. It was self-awareness systematized. Because Dalio believed that the best decisions don't come from instinct or inspiration. They come from iterated reflection on actual data. He treated himself like a living experiment. When something went wrong, he didn't just feel bad. He got curious. What did I miss? Was it a failure of data or thinking? What pattern allowed this? And then, crucially, he wrote it down. Not in a diary, in a database. A growing, searchable, analyzable record of his own mental patterns. Over time, this became a treasure. Not memories, but metrics. Not stories, but statistics. He called it the Principles Library. But really, it was something more profound. It was the architect's blueprint for overriding the ghost. Because when you have data, the ghost's lies become obvious. It can't rewrite history when history is logged. It can't distort patterns when patterns are tracked. Most people never build this. They rely on vague recollections filtered through emotion. They tell themselves stories about who they are instead of studying the evidence of who they've been. The ghost loves this approach. It can manipulate memories, justify failures, inflate successes. But data doesn't lie. Data doesn't forget. Data doesn't care about your ego. Think of yourself as a piece of software. What the world sees, your personality, your actions, your words, that's just the user interface. But beneath it lies the source code, your principles, your patterns, your hidden algorithms. Most people spend their whole lives polishing the interface, hoping to look good, but they never access their own source code. Writing down your patterns like Dalio did is like a developer opening the command line and gaining root access to their own system. For the first time, you're not just a user of yourself. You become the programmer. Start small. Log your decisions and their outcomes. Track your energy levels and what affects them. Note your emotional patterns and their triggers. Record your assumptions and test their accuracy. Over time, you'll build something invaluable. Not just a record of your life, but a map of your mind. A diagnostic tool that shows exactly where the ghost operates and where the architect can intervene. Because here's the truth. You are not a mystery. You are a system. A complex system, yes, but a system nonetheless. And systems can be understood, optimized, upgraded. The ghost wants you to believe you're unknowable, unpredictable, at the mercy of mysterious forces. The architect knows better. With enough data, any pattern becomes visible. Any bug becomes fixable. Any limitation becomes optional. But even the most optimized system needs a purpose. Data without direction is just noise. Which brings us to what Dalio discovered matters more than money. Insight 12, the algorithm of meaningful wealth. Ray Dalio didn't become one of the richest men alive by chasing money. He got there by solving an equation most people never even write, the equation for meaningful wealth, and it has nothing to do with your bank balance. In Dalio's system, wealth isn't a number, it's an algorithm. Meaningful work plus meaningful relationships equals meaningful life. If any variable is missing, the equation fails. If work becomes soulless, relationships suffer. If relationships become toxic, work becomes escape. If neither has purpose, wealth becomes prison. The ghost sells you the lie that more money equals more meaning. The architect knows that meaning makes money, not the other way around. He once wrote, "Meaningful work and meaningful relationships aren't just nice to have. They're the algorithm for a life worth living." This wasn't philosophy. It was data-backed engineering. He studied the happiest, most fulfilled people he knew. Everyone ran this same program: contribution plus connection, progress plus presence, achievement plus attachment. At Bridgewater, this meant building more than a profit machine. He built a growth engine, a place where people could evolve intellectually and emotionally, where conflict deepened respect, where performance metrics coexisted with radical care. It wasn't always smooth, growth never is, but it was real, and from that reality came loyalty, creativity, and yes, massive returns. But here's what most people miss. Dalio didn't find this meaning, he engineered it. He coded it into his principles. He made space for family in his calendar, not his leftovers. He built feedback systems for relationships, not just trades. He treated emotional growth with the same rigor as financial growth. The architect designed for wholeness. The ghost would have settled for success. Think about your own life. Are you optimizing for cash or connection? Are you so busy building your empire that you're destroying your ecosystem? When did you last debug your schedule, not for productivity, but for presence? The ghost whispers, make money first, meaning later. But later never comes. Because money without meaning is just numbers. Success without connection is just isolation with better furniture. Dalio's system didn't separate work and love. It integrated them. He didn't believe in balance. He believed in alignment. When your values, your calendar, and your relationships all run the same code, that's when the system sings. That's when Monday morning feels like possibility, not prison. That's when success amplifies joy instead of replacing it. This is why he could go from billion-dollar decisions to family dinners without feeling split. Both were part of the same architecture, same principles, same purpose. The ghost fragments your life into competing compartments. The architect builds it into a unified system. And here's the profound truth. The better your inner system, the more value you create externally. The more aligned you are, the more impact you make. Not just in business, but in how people feel in your presence. That's real wealth. Wealth that compounds. Wealth that transfers. Wealth that outlasts your last breath. But even meaning must be captured, codified, shared. Otherwise, it dies with you. Which brings us to Dalio's final revelation about building something that lasts. Insight. 13. The legacy code and why. Principles outlive people. Most people live their entire lives by invisible rules. Scripts inherited from parents, absorbed from culture, downloaded from fear. They follow patterns they never chose. Make decisions they never questioned. React to triggers they never examined. And in doing so, they become passengers in their own existence. The ghost's perfect victims. Ray Dalio refused to live that way. He chose to write his principles, and in doing so, he discovered something profound about legacy. Here's the core truth. If you don't write your operating system, you'll run on someone else's. Your parents' fears become your boundaries. Society's expectations become your goals. Your past becomes your future. The ghost keeps you on autopilot, running outdated code written by people who never lived your life. Dalio believed writing was thinking made visible. Clarity wasn't something you waited for. It was something you constructed, line by line, principle by principle. And the more explicitly you coded it, the more powerful it became. Not just for you, but for everyone your life touches. At Bridgewater, new employees didn't just get a handbook. They got a philosophy, a documented system of thought, hundreds of principles tested over decades, debugged through thousands of decisions. That's how Dalio ensured continuity, not through charisma or control, but through code. The architect's ultimate creation, a system that outlives its creator. But legacy isn't about monuments or money. It's about transmitting your hard-won clarity to others. Your beliefs, your breakthroughs, your scars transformed into wisdom. If you don't write them, they vanish. Your children inherit your assets, but not your insights. Your team inherits your tasks, but not your thinking. The ghost wins by default, keeping wisdom locked in skulls instead of shared in systems. So, pause. Ask yourself the architect's questions. What do you believe so deeply it should be law? What failure taught you something so essential it deserves documentation? What pattern keeps appearing in your life that others could avoid if you named it? This isn't about becoming a guru. It's about becoming a transmitter. Every written principle is a gift to your future self and everyone you influence. Think of yourself as source code. Right now, you're running on a mix of conscious choices and unconscious inheritance. Some of it serves you, much of it doesn't. But until you examine it, document it, debug it, you can't upgrade it. And more importantly, you can't share the clean version with others. Dalio's book Principles wasn't just his memoir. It was his source code made public. His children didn't just inherit wealth, they inherited wisdom. His employees didn't just get jobs, they got an operating system. His readers, millions of them, now run pieces of his architecture in their own lives. That's true legacy. Not what you leave behind, but what you install in others. Writing your principles isn't just self-improvement. It's systems programming for humanity. Every person who reads your code and runs it better becomes part of your extended architecture. Your thoughts achieve digital immortality. Your wisdom scales beyond your physical presence. The ghost dies with the body, but the architect's code runs forever. So, if you want to leave something that lasts, don't wait for perfection. Start with one principle, one truth you've earned through pain, one pattern you've decoded through reflection. Write it like someone else will need to run it, because someone will. Even if that someone is you, 10 years from now, trying to remember who you decided to become. But what if you're not there yet? What if the ghost still feels stronger than the architect? Then there's one final choice to make. Insight 14. The final debug, live by design or live by default. You're running an operating system, right now, this moment. Whether you built it or inherited it, whether it serves you or sabotages you, whether it's clean code or corrupted scripts. You are executing patterns, emotional, mental, behavioral, every second of every day. The only question that matters is this: did you choose them? Or were they chosen for you? This is Ray Dalio's final and most confronting insight. Everyone lives by principles. Most just don't know what they are. They absorb them like viruses, from childhood, from culture, from trauma, from television. And now, like malware running in the background, these invisible rules operate their lives. The ghost's greatest triumph, making you think its thoughts are yours. Dalio didn't want to be a puppet of unconscious programming, so he did something radical. He stopped assuming, stopped defaulting, stopped letting the ghost drive. And he began designing, thought by thought, principle by principle, system by system. He chose to become the architect of his own existence. That design wasn't rigid, it wasn't dogma, it was alive, adaptive, evolutionary, like clean code that gets refactored as you learn. Dalio knew the world changes, markets shift, people grow, reality evolves, so his system wasn't built to be perfect, it was built to be upgraded. That's the power of conscious principles. They're living documents. You test them against reality, break them against experience, refine them through reflection, and in doing so, you refine yourself. To live by design means you stop reacting and start responding. You stop asking, what should I do? And start asking, what does my principle say? That shift changes everything. It removes emotion from the driver's seat, replaces panic with process, turns chaos into clarity. The ghost hates this because it thrives on confusion. The architect loves it because clarity is power. You don't need 500 principles to begin. You need one principle you choose consciously. One line of code you write yourself. Test it today. Live it tomorrow. Refine it next week. Then add another. Soon, you're not just changing habits. You're changing architecture. Building an internal operating system that runs smoother, faster, wiser than the ghost's chaos. Because here's the terrifying truth. The people you admire, the ones who seem to operate on another level, they aren't lucky. They're coded, not with motivation, with systems, not with talent, with principles. They don't leave decisions to chance or emotion. They've architected their responses, they've debugged their defaults. They've chosen to run their own code instead of the ghosts. So, what about you? What part of your system is still running on someone else's programming? What behavior keeps looping that you never chose? What belief operates invisibly, sabotaging your progress? What principle does the ghost enforce that the architect would delete? This is your moment, your final debug, the instant where philosophy becomes practice, where insight becomes action, where you stop being a user of your own mind and become its programmer. Not someday, not when you're ready, now. Because life doesn't pause for you to prepare. It compiles, it executes, it runs. And if you don't step in as the architect, you'll forever remain the ghost's puppet. Ray Dalio built his system, tested it through decades, scaled it to billions, shared it with millions. But his system was his. Yours must be yours, built from your pain, refined through your reflection, coded in your language, designed for your life. The ghost wants you to wait, to doubt, to delay, to keep running its comfortable, familiar, limiting code. But the architect in you knows better. It knows that every moment running old code is a moment stolen from your potential. Every day on default settings is a day designing someone else's life. So, choose. Not between success and failure, not between wealth and poverty, but between consciousness and unconsciousness, between architecture and accident, between the life you design and the life that happens to you. Because in the end, we all run code. The only choice is, will you write yours, or will you execute someone else's forever? Install your Billionaire operating system. You've just decoded the mind of Ray Dalio, not the billionaire, the builder of systems, of principles, of himself. You've seen how he turned pain into patterns, feedback into fuel, ego into data, chaos into code. You've walked through his architecture, from the ghost that controls to the architect that creates. So, now the question flips to you. What system is running you? Is it reaction or reflection? Is it impulse or iteration? Is it the ghost's chaos or the architect's clarity? Because here's the deal. If you don't write your code, someone else's will run on you. Your parents, your past, your fears, your feed. But not anymore. You're here because something inside you is ready to debug, ready to rebuild, ready to stop being a passenger and become the programmer. So, here's your mission. Not tomorrow, today, now. Write your first principle, just one. Doesn't matter how small. If you believe it, code it. Track one decision this week, log what you did, why you did it, what happened. Data beats drama. Notice one blind spot. Ask someone you trust for real feedback, even if it stings, especially if it stings. Choose one moment of pain from your past. Reflect. Extract the pattern. What principle was hiding inside? Design one simple system. For your mornings, your money, your mind, start small, build daily. Then come back and write another. If you felt something shift during this video, if the architect in you is stronger than when we started, comment installing now below. Let this be the moment your upgrade begins. Let it be the first log in your new life system. And if you're ready to go deeper, subscribe. Not for algorithms, not for analytics, but because we're building something here. A community of architects, mental engineers, people who refuse to run on default, who insist on designing their own code, who know that success isn't random and clarity isn't luck. Remember this. Success isn't an accident. It's an architecture. Clarity isn't a gift. It's code. Wisdom isn't inherited. It's engineered. Wealth isn't just money. It's meaning systematized. The question isn't whether you have an operating system. You do. The question is, are you the one who wrote it? Welcome to Billionaire OS, where the ghost dies and the architect is born. Your installation starts now.